Hello and welcome to Affordable's Automation Team demo. We're going to get started by installing the plugin that we need called Selenium IDE. You can do so by going to Selenium IDE or by looking up Selenium IDE and looking for it in the Chrome store. Or you can go to the open source page down here, and that will lead you to the download for either Chrome or Firefox. So you can choose it depending on what browser you have. We're going to do it with Chrome today. So all you need to do is add it to Chrome, and then the extension will be available in your toolbar. So let's open it up and get started. Now we're going to create a new project and name it after the place where we are applying. We're going to be applying on this page here. So I'm just going to put in a sample name for this page. It says Vichy, so I'm going to name it that. Ideally, you should name it after the foundation for which you are applying. And then we have a few things. You can add a new test. You can place the URL of the website that you're trying to record. So I'm going to highlight this and copy it into playback base URL. And then I'm going to hit record, ideally, to get started. But I'm just going to show you the different types of inputs that you can use for these websites. So we have text boxes, we have radio buttons, we have drop downs, and then the other type of input that we support is checkboxes, but that is not in this website. So for the name, you would put in the tag that corresponds to the information for that. So you would look at the configuration file that we provided and look for something that corresponds to name. So we have the first thing here is user info first name. So we would copy this and put it in the name in the box or the first name. And then you continue on and do that for the entire form. So that's for the first name, and then you might have a box that has masked text fields. You can only put in things like numbers, and you can't put in any other characters. And then there are radio buttons. You record the input for that by clicking on each of the buttons available. You do this in order to give Selenium the position of each of the buttons. So we'll go back later and explain why this needs to be done, but you just need to do it for now. And then for drop downs, you just select each option available in the drop down. And then when you have checkboxes, you would do the exact same thing. You would hit every single option for a checkbox. Okay, so let's go back to the first page and start recording. So if we record this page, we would click on this button, and then we would click on this button, and then we would hit submit, and then we would find the tag appropriate for first name, which we know is here, and then we get the tag appropriate for last name, and put that in there. Get the tag appropriate for the phone number, because we can see that here. We'll put that in. Now the number in the household. We're going to look through and find that piece of information. And then we have to click on each of the radio buttons on the form. Click on this one, and then we need to select each of the options for the drop down. So this one, female, and prefer not to say, and then hit submit. And then we go to Selenium IDE and we stop the recording. And then we name the test. So for the sake of naming convention, we are going to name the test after the things that we had to put in. So we just had to put in a bunch of general information, so we're going to call it general information. And then we have to edit a few of the inputs that we put into the form. So you don't really need to edit anything for the user info, but we know that these clicks for assistance, we find if we go to the web page where we filled this out, click on this little magnifying glass, we can find the target in the page, and you'll see that it homes in on that button that we clicked on. So for radio buttons and checkboxes and drop-downs, you need to surround each of the clicks with an if statement, and you do this by inserting a new command above and below the statement, and you can move these things around by dragging them. And then you put the command if in the top one, and then you put end in the bottom command. Now to make sure this actually works, you need to find the piece of information that you were trying to get. So it looks like we're trying to find copay assistance. So we'll scroll to the top and we'll look through this again to find copay assistance. Okay, looks like we found it. So we're going to take this tag and we're going to put it in the target. We're going to put a quote and then the tag and then another quote. Or actually, we don't need to do that. But we will need to do that with the piece of information that we are comparing it to. Now, because we are comparing this with equality, we need to put two equal signs. And then we need to put in quotes the name of the piece of information that we are trying to affirm. So this tag is going to either return the word copay or the word premium. So we only want this statement or this button to get clicked if the piece of information in this part of the database says copay. So we're going to put the word copay in the quotes. This way, whenever this statement gets run in the end product, you can the database will only select this button if copay is in this part of the database. Now we need to do the same thing with premium assistance. So we see that that's where that button lives. So we're going to add one above and one below and do like the exact same thing. Target, apply with copay premium. And this time we put in premium. And then we fill in end. So that should be this first page, and then this last click will just be the submit button. Correct. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So we just need to figure out what are we clicking here. That's just the name of the box. So that's fine, we can leave that like it is because it'll automatically fill the text box with the correct piece of information, and then when the script goes back, it'll fill that in. So we don't need to do any more work for these text fields. But we're going to go through, and it looks like name equals marriage is our next button that we're happy to do, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to surround it with an if statement. find the piece of information about marriage. So we're just going to find married, looks like it's down here. So user info marital status is equal to married. That gets clicked. And then it looks like this one is pointing to the single button. So we're going to surround this with the exact same piece of information. And then it looks like we have a whole bunch of clicks for when we did the gender dropdown. And so it looks like a lot of this is just clicking on the exact same thing. And it's the select label thing that actually goes and changes it. So by taking a look at this, we can infer that the initial, by not clicking it at all, it will leave it to the default value of male, and that these selectors, well, are the only things that change the value of the dropdown. So we can disable a whole bunch of these commands using this button, and then only leave in the select commands. Now there will be some cases with dropdowns where this will not be the case, and you will need the first click to reveal the rest of the dropdown like this. So I clicked on it once, and it reveals the entire dropdown, and then it will be the next subsequent click that will matter. So you will need one click, and then you'll need, if these selects didn't exist, you'll either need a click where it equals female, a click where it equals prefer not to say, or a click where it equals male for this example. But for this specific instance, we only need to surround select label equals female and select prefer not to say with the if statements. So we are going to put a new if statement in. And it looks like gender is right here. Equals female. And then if gender equals prefer not to say, and then we put in the end. And then what you're going to want to do is, if there is an input where they don't match up exactly, so say it said MFP, you could still put in these exact values. So, but you're only trying to get the database to figure out how to click through this thing. So it doesn't matter if the form itself says married or whatever. It matters what says, what the config file says for what these values have to be when you're making if statements. So this would be a finished form at this point, and this last button would just be the submit. So if we have a completely finished form, what we want to do is we want to export it, and you do this by either right-clicking or hovering over it and clicking on these three dots, and click export, click Python PyTest, and then hit export. And then you're going to want to save this to wherever you're going to save your files to send them over to Affordable, and then you're going to want to save the project itself. So I'll go ahead and save this, and then I'm going to actually export it. So Python PyTest, export, and then save. So this is completely made. Now I'm going to walk you through, so that was the entire process for filling out a single page form. What if you have multiple pages? This is the user guide that explains how to go about doing that. We're going to go down to part 5. And this entire document explains everything that I've explained and a little bit more. So this last part is to explain the phenomenon known as branching paths. So something that you might notice is that at this first page, we could select copay assistance or premium assistance. And if copay assistance is selected, then we get an entirely different web page than premium assistance. So this presents a little bit of a problem because we just made an entire recording where the only path is premium assistance. And we set up a path where if we could have just clicked on copay and then submit, then we would have nothing to do for this page. The solution to this is creating 3 separate files. One for this page, one for copay assistance, and then one for premium assistance. And this is of course just an example. This is applicable to any sort of question which would result in the form being changed in any way. So what we would do is we would make instead a new test for copay or premium, and then we'd make another test called for premium, and then another test called for copay. And then you would basically go about recording them in the exact same way that you went about recording it for the single page. But there are a few extra steps after you do this. Now that we have the 3 files that we want to use for our branching paths, we need to export them and set them up. The process for this is a little bit different. We're going to start by exporting all 3 of the files. Oh. Okay, now that we have the files, we need to set up the folders to manage this. So we have the starting point, which is where all of these files are going to go. So you just need to select all the files that are going to go in here and then put them in. Now we're going to go into this folder and we need to sort these files by the branching path in which they reside. So we're going to make one for copay for the purpose of sorting it, and we're going to put for copay in there. Then we're going to make a new folder called premium. We're going to put for premium in there, and then we have the decision one. And each of these files needs to be renamed according to a naming convention that will dictate the order in which these files get run. Sometimes you will have more than one single page file before you get to a branching path. So you just need to put an underscore and then 1. So, and then if you had another file, you would just put underscore 2, underscore 3, and so on. So this needs to be done for each of these files. So because this is the first file, in this folder, it needs to be renamed _1, and the same thing for copay. _1. Okay, so we have all of the files renamed. Now we just need to rename the folders, because our tool that we use to automatically go through and stitch these files together into one large test requires us to put a certain syntax on the folders. So we have to find the tag that we used to determine copay or premium, and it is right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy that, and we have a slightly different syntax since we're just working within the names of files. So we're going to put the name of it and underscore and E to denote that we're putting in 2 equal signs like we did before, and then the value, but we're going to put apostrophes. This is the character that is right next to the 1 and above the tab on your keyboard. And then we're going to put copay and then another apostrophe, and then that is the name of the file. And you can get these naming conventions in the guide along with other if state comparison operators on page 29 of the user guide, or the volunteer handbook rather. So going back to the folder, we just need to rename this _E _apostrophe premium, and then we are done. So we just have to, this represents an entire testing suite that is ready to get sent to Affordable. So we would go and to send this to Affordable, and the best way to send files that are just like directories is to zip them up. So if you have an archiving tool, you would use that to add to archive and then either keep them as a RAR or a zip, although a zip is probably easier because there are more archiving tools that use zip files. And then you would zip that up, and then you would send the zip to Affordable. Okay, that's about everything.